What a marvellous thing it is to be out in nature. Whether or not you capture any images, just being out, enjoying the sounds of the birds, seeing the trees, breathing in the lovely fresh air. Just so good for your mental well-being. And I would encourage you, if you can, to do exactly the same. Go out early, just after sunrise, and enjoy the wood on your own, without any disturbance. Being solitary is often the best tonic. Good morning. Welcome to this week's video. And this week's video is kind of a bit indulgent, I guess, because I've got a load of videos stacked up ready to show you on Sundays, and don't really need a new video. I could wait, but I've got some time. I have to come up to Norfolk to my holiday home for a meeting tomorrow morning. So I came up yesterday afternoon, thought I'd spend the day taking pictures in one of my favourite woodlands up here in Norfolk on the coast, because there are green leaves. Spring has arrived. It stopped raining unbelievably, and I thought I'd come and just try to get some images of woodland, but nothing conceived, nothing that I want to shoot. I have got what 3 words open to go and find some compositions that I've seen before. We haven't got particularly great light today, and it's okay. It's about half an hour after sunrise, and as far as the clouds are concerned, it's broken cloud, but there's quite a lot of high cloud, so it's a lovely diffuse light. But I love woodland photography, as you know, and the chance to come out on my own for a couple of hours photography is something that I couldn't really let go. So let's have a walk through this beautiful ancient woodland and see what we can find. Hope you enjoy the video. So I think come to my first location. If you look over my shoulder over that way, you can see this wonderful old tree, which I think, yeah, it's all broken down. It's all a bit kind of old and dead. I don't know if it's dead or not actually, but there's some lovely shapes in the branches. There's one tree behind it as well. And I think there's going to be a nice abstract picture here. This tree behind me, this side, also looks fairly good, but he's a bit symmetrical. So I'm going to walk around this tree, which is always a good idea, and see if I can see a composition before we get the camera out. But I think I might just have seen my first composition of the day. There's potentially 2 images here, not quite sure which one I prefer best, but there's definitely one from where you are kind of here. So we've got this lovely old tree, isn't it beautiful? But then behind it, there's a tree that's really interesting, which I really like actually. You see it just there. And from that side, it's probably the best composition, but the light's not the best. But if I go this way, there's some lovely side lighting on the back of the trunks, and I think that looks really good. It's got a couple of holly trees, small holly trees growing in front of it, which are going to completely block the composition. So whatever I do, I'm going to have to get out of the way of them. I'm going to have to compose them so they're not in the picture, not in the foreground certainly. So I think what we're going to do is shoot this one. I might convert this to black and white. It's all about contrast, it's about shapes, but also I want to get a colour picture today, because I want to see these green leaves, these signs of spring that are just coming out, just showing themselves. This tree hasn't got any leaves on it, but there are obviously some greens in the background, which are really lovely. Some lovely mints, some darker holly trees, which look really lovely. And maybe this picture with the old tree, with the other tree as a background will be quite nice. I'm going to throw it out of focus a little bit, and then what I'll do is go further forward and photograph the other tree which I've just sussed out. So let's get set up then. Here we go. Okay, so I'm set up now. I've got Winston really high, as you can see, kind of looking down into this dark piece of woodland behind, and focusing on this first tree here. Let me just show you in the camera what I'm looking at. So we can see here, focusing on this main branch here. Oops, back button broke, so you can see where that's focused. The intention is to get rid of that sky there, something like that. We might, this bit here, if I decide to compose it like this, I probably will. I'm probably going to fill that with generative fill in Photoshop because I find this sky really distracting. But the exposure, F11, 2 seconds. I've got a polarizer on, but it's not making a great deal of difference, I don't think. And there's the image. First one in the bag then, which is really nice. So I'm going to move further down and see if I can't photograph this other old tree here, which I really like the shape of. And then we'll move on. Not sure I like this quite so much, but we'll see. I'm going to shoot it anyway. So I'm shooting over the top of this little holly tree, which is just down here. And the picture's all about these branches, really. Just making a little abstract picture with these. Some lovely side lighting coming down from the back of the valley there, which are really lovely. There's some real subtle greens in this, which I think are going to look great. I'll bring this out, and the lighting looks really nice. So really enjoying this. For me, it's the process of taking pictures which I really enjoy, and the combination of bare branches with touches of growth and these lovely kind of spring greens is what I'm trying to capture today, and I think we're making progress already. Right, let me shoot this, and I'll put both of these pictures on the screen for you to have a look at. Tell me what you think. I've taken the hat off, by the way, it's getting really warm. I've come across this little scene, which I quite like, and I've been playing around for a while with the composition. But what I've done, I'll show you in camera, I've now gone to square format. So I've gone one-to-one, because that's how I'm going to print it. And I was kind of distracted with it full frame. I was getting lots of things in. Now, the only thing I don't like about this, you'll probably be able to guess what this is going to be. That little bit of blue up there. But that I quite like. Now, we've got F8, a quarter of a second, because what I want to do is throw the background out of focus. And I've been asked by a couple of people actually about what does F11 mean, what does F8 mean, which is a fair enough question if you're not photographers. Basically what we're looking at is to make exposure correct. In other words, the picture is a nice brightness that you can see everything, and this is very basic. You've got 3 options to control that, and they work together as a triangle. ISO is the speed or sensitivity of the sensor. It used to be sensitivity of the film. The lower the ISO, the better the quality. And we're always, as landscape photographers, looking for the best quality. So I generally shoot at ISO 64, which is as low as this camera will go. That's not so sensitive to light. So obviously there's a little bit of an implication there for us. The shutter speed controls how things are frozen in time. So if things are moving, you need a fast shutter speed to freeze it. If you don't do that, it gets blurred. Normally not a problem at all in landscape photography. We'll get back to that in a second. Aperture controls something called depth of field. In other words, what's in focus. So at a large aperture like f2.8, f4, only really the thing that you focus on is really sharp. Everything else gets that lovely out of focus kind of feel to it. When you shut down to something like f22, which is really small, you get everything in focus pretty much. And that, again, there's variations on that depending on what lens you're using. So that's to get everything in focus. Now, the other things that come into play are things called diffraction. So at f22, most lenses, and f2.8 if they're that kind of lens, both ends of the aperture scale, lenses don't work the best. They're a bit softer. So we're looking for the sweet spot. As landscape photographers, we're looking for the best possible print. And that's generally on this lens around f8, f11, f16 are probably the best apertures to use. f16 I'm not quite confident about either. f13 kind of halfway between. I use that a bit. Now, if you put it on a tripod and you're photographing something that's completely still, the shutter speed doesn't really matter. So what I tend to do is I tend to look at a scene and decide what depth of field I need. In other words, what do I want that's going to be sharp throughout or in focus. Select that. ISO is generally 64, and therefore the shutter speed is whatever the shutter speed is. Now, in some occasions, and you've seen me do some long exposure photography, the long exposure, the long shutter speed, 1-2 minutes, is the important bit. And then we can use the aperture ring to kind of affect that. So every time I go from f11 to f16, I'd have to open the shutter from 1 second to a half a second. Okay, they're a balance. The other thing you could do is raise the ISO. And those three things make correct exposure. I'll demonstrate it one day, but hopefully that explains it. Right, let's shoot this in square. I'll put this on the screen for you. By the way, I'm using sort of f7.1, so not wide open on this lens, but not shut down. I want a little bit of out of focus behind the tree. Hope that helps. Well, I have really enjoyed that. It's been a wonderful day. This lovely lake here, look, beautiful. A pond, I suppose you'd call it. I've just enjoyed, even though the photography, I would say, has been quite tough, I've really enjoyed just being out in nature. Spring is coming. We've got some leaves on the trees. The greens are approaching. We've got summer vibrancy just around the corner. It's warmer. I haven't got my hat on. And it's just a pleasure to be out. And I really feel like after the winter, and we've had a very wet and damp winter here in the UK, no snow, so nothing dramatic, just kind of grey and miserable. And being out today has really lifted my mood, and I think that's a really important thing to do. The the process of getting into the back of the camera, thinking about compositions, and just enjoying the bird song, smelling this kind of spring arriving, not seeing hardly anybody, the odd dog walker to say hello to, and that's been it. It's such a privilege to be out and about on this wonderful Thursday, so I hope that's come across in the video. I'll put the pictures up here for you to have a look at, and thanks ever so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to see you again soon. If you want to get back to the channel in a quick way, just hit that subscribe button and you'll be able to find me again. So thanks ever so much. See you next week, Sunday, 6 o'clock. Until then, take care. Look after yourselves. Goodbye.